welcome, Maureen. I know you have been a friend, a colleague, and I'm so thankful that we have been able to work together in different at different times. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. My most of my training is actually in a therapy called experiential, which is if anybody's familiar with kind of the different milieus of therapy, it's close to psychodrama. And I'm trained in internal family systems, and yeah, I have a large chemical dependency background, so I understand a lot of the ins and outs of addiction and how it affects the families and all that. With therapists, one of our main tasks in becoming a therapist is deciding upon how we see people grow and how they heal. And so any therapist you go to will have a slightly different understanding and experience of how they believe people heal and grow. So I just want to put that out there so that you know that that how I approach different things are from my understanding of how people heal and grow. So if the things I say today don't resonate with you, don't think it's about therapy that doesn't resonate with you. It just may be my perspective and my particular approach that may not work well for you. And there's all different kinds. I'm sure many of you have heard about cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's all different kinds of therapies, but internal family systems is one. And if you're interested, I can kind of give you a basis of what that approach looks like and how it kind of perceives people as growing and healing. We can certainly do that. I know in these days, there is lots of stress, lots of anxiety. We're seeing that reflected a lot in kids in schools. We've got many different systems in place these days that apply much pressure to individuals, period. And so, one of the thoughts that we were talking about for today was kind of possibly addressing, the levels of anxiety and depression that kind of are results, I think, of these systems that are in place, and how we can possibly change a little bit our approach to these systems and our beliefs about these systems. I think when you see a system in place clearly, it takes the pressure off of yourself of thinking there's something wrong with you because you're not dealing with it well, or you're not, feeling comfortable with what's going on. So other than that, maybe what we can do is go around and everybody kind of introduce themselves, who they are, and maybe what they might like to get out of today, that something that you could walk away from this session with that would be helpful for you.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Where should we start? Shall we start with Peyton? Peyton?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Peyton.
Hey, so I'm not in any type of work with this, but Jessica invited me to join. And what I'm hoping to get out of this is just, for me, just more knowledge. I do volunteer at the local Boys and Girls Club out here. And so you around high schoolers especially, they're very open about stuff, and some things I wish I had more resources of how to direct them in a certain way without, impeding on anything. So I'm kind of hoping that what I can get out of this is just more applicable for me as a mentor to these kids.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Anyone else that would like to introduce themselves?
I can go.
Mhm.
Hello, Maureen. Not sure you remember me, but we met in a Boys and Girls
Yes.
Club.
Yes, we
And
did.
so lovely to see you again. And what I would like to know is kind of like everything general, but also kind of interested, as we always say, like it's kind of it can be very costly to have a mental health treatment. So I was wondering, like, if there are any ways how we as an organization, or even we as just the people, can help our family or help our community, maybe to connect them with some resources or what we can do, or if not resources, like any tips or how we can help people around us, and how to kind of maybe even recognize that there is some distress in people, because I felt it's kind of hard to discover anything sometimes because people are really good at hiding. So this is what I'm looking forward to. Thank you.
Right, you're welcome. Yes.
Anyone else?
Hi, okay, I'm Angelica. I'm here on the technical side. If anyone is not able to speak out loud, I can go ahead and read anything from the chat. But I am a mother of a 6-year-old who is back here.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
yes, I'm here, well, on the technical side, but curious as to helping her, with her big emotions. She's working on homework right now, and she says, I never get it right. Like, I'm not perfect. And then, trying to like reassure her, you don't need to be perfect. Just those things, helping with her big emotions, and I'm getting her to problem solve and, take a deep breath. So on the parenting side, just a little help.
Yeah. And there's, I'm going to take some notes while people are talking, so I make sure that I get all this. But yeah, I can see where we can blend that all together. Absolutely.
Hi, Maureen. I'm Diane Alford, and I am a part of this We Are One United team. And thank you for being here tonight. I think my general interest is basically centered around, as beginning to work with the young people in our programming, how after COVID, after all of the gaps in emotional strengths and building, how do we approach that with the young people without re-traumatizing the experiences that many of them have had in the COVID era?
Okay. Okay.
And Maureen, I'm Kwana. And Angelica took my word right out of my mouth, because I have a son who also deals with very strong emotions. He's 8, and he was never a very emotional kid. He was always sensitive, but not really emotional, where he would just have crying outbursts. And lately, this is the reality that we're living in, that everything makes him so upset, the littlest thing, and he is having a meltdown. We just came from a party, and they were playing tag, and he didn't win, and he was crying for 30 minutes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And I've even, considered potentially sending him to someone for help, because I just don't know,
Okay.
how to support him and how to help him through whatever this crisis that he feels like he's going through in his mind, of things that don't, to me seem like they're worth him being that angry about,
Sure.
but just affect him so emotionally.
Okay.
And then I also have a 6-year-old who sometimes I feel like he's the opposite. He's not emotional enough. Everything, is he's this super strong, super, I don't know, almost to the point of being a little aggressive, kind of guy, where he takes his emotions out on other people, instead of having the ability to cope with whatever he's dealing with. You know, a friend of his got his material stolen in school yesterday, and he punches the little kid out. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is not, what we do. And we've tried to coach and counsel and, show him the right way. But I think that he needs some other kind of assistance as well.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zubair Rakwi, and I'm part of We Are One United. We really appreciate you having you today here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. What I expect really to get away from here, it might not be direct, but I'm looking at working within the community, different cultures, and then we look at sometimes different mental or people using drugs sometimes. I'm looking at how can we handle or understand that maybe what we are saying might trigger maybe somebody to be either annoyed with us. So I'm looking at the triggers when we work with the community. That's what maybe that would be helpful to me. Thank you.
Okay. I think we have three more that haven't checked in.
Hi, I'm John Epps. I'm the executive director. And yes, I want to echo the thanks for you being here. I think that for me, again, as we're working on violence intervention and prevention, as we're working on youth development, we understand that right now the environment has been very stressful and tough for them. And so, like Zubair, I'm looking for any tips or information that will help us as we try to help them to find their way through. And then the other thing, obviously, there's a lot of stigma associated with mental health. And so if there's any ideas on how we can both help them to be more aware of getting help and maybe, help them to deal with some of the fallout when they do ask for help, that would be very useful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be a good one to talk about too. Okay. Not that all of these are good things to talk about. Thank you.
Luz, the question is, we're going to be talking about youth mental health. And is there anything in particular you want to try to get out of the session?
Good evening, and I'm Luz Moreno, and I am honored to be on the board of We Are One United. And for me, this topic is so important for our youth and for a lot of us today. And I would love to learn if there's other ways that we can refer to behavioral mental health so that the stigma maybe doesn't really apply, but yet we're still helping them with that topic. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. I think everyone has checked in, right?
Okay. Did Diane?
Yes, Diane did too.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So with all of these, I think a good place to start, I'm thinking, is discussing kind of talking about development, child development a little bit, and how that relates to parents and how it relates to community on a family. So I'm a marriage and family therapist. So the reason I chose marriage and family therapist compared to any of the other things is truly because I see that people work in systems. That's my belief. that you work in a system that when there is something going on, it affects the whole system and the system compensates for that. Meaning, so I want you to compare it to kind of like if, say, your family is on a boat. If somebody leans over one side of the boat, somebody else in the family is going to lean over on the other side of the boat to make sure that it stays stable, right? So each system kind of figures out their own way on how to keep the boat stable. And every family is kind of different in how they do that because of the different things that are involved there, okay? That being said, developmentally with children, okay? So I'm going to do my little brain thing. So if I'm going to way oversimplify this, but it works, so hang with me. If we were to split the brain up into 3 different sections, okay? This here is the seat of the fight, flight, and flight. We call it the reptile brain. That's this part right here. It's actually the first thing that we grow, this in the heart, when we're developing our body, okay? This is what controls, like I said, I'm being very generic about it, but this is what controls your adrenaline, your heartbeat, your blood pressure, because it's the part that prepares your body to either fight or to run. It's about survival. This part here is our midbrain, okay? This is where most of our activity goes on, okay? When you, this part of the brain, which is unconscious, it deals primarily with patterns, just patterns. So how a pattern would be developed would be, say, a 2-year-old walks into the kitchen and touches a hot stove. The pattern that gets laid is that if you feel heat and you see something red, you're going to get burned, so get away. So the next time that child sees something red and feels heat, it may back off, or at least have a little bit of adrenaline rush, like, hey, you're in danger. Okay. Now, when I say patterns, that can be a smell. It could be the way somebody looks at you. If the child has been in danger, and it can be labeled, especially with young kids, it can be patterns can be made out of things that have nothing to do with anybody, because kids don't have the frontal lobe quite developed yet. They're just going to make that pattern. So that's how people get phobias sometimes. There's a famous case of a gentleman that was phobic about caterpillars. And they realized that what had happened at 2 years old, he had been in a car accident and got thrown from the vehicle. And when he came to, there was a caterpillar he had landed in a field, and there was a caterpillar on a piece of grass right in front of him. So all that fear, all that adrenaline got attached to that caterpillar. And it's very real. It's not something that is conscious. We all have these patterns, and no matter how educated you become, you never get above these patterns. You only can become more aware of them and work with them, okay? And then the third part is the frontal lobe, okay? That's the executive functions. That's what we use when we go to school, figure out our day-to-day, so on and so forth, okay? This is the last to come online, 25 to 27 years for this to be fully grown and fully operational, okay? So that being said, with little kids, they do not have this. They are not going to plan for them not to be reasonable, for there to be emotionally reactive, for them to not think things through. That's why teenagers can be so dangerous sometimes, right? Because they have a lot of abilities, and they have a lot of potential for and not thinking things through clearly, right? That's why their insurance is so high on their cars, because they're not apt, generally speaking, to think things through totally, because they don't have this fully on board, okay? When you trigger anger or anxiety or fear, okay, this is what gets triggered, okay? When this limbic system has been triggered, this part goes offline. How many of you have become anxious, have gotten maybe really anxious or really angry, and then tried to figure out why you're really anxious and angry to not much resolve? Or you get really angry with somebody and you're trying to explain to them why you're so angry and it just keeps. Okay. That's because this doesn't function. If we were to put somebody into a brain scan at the time of being very angry or very frightened, you would see all the activity would be going on here and here between the midbrain and this. And this shuts down because the body's priority, the brain's priority at that point, when you are frightened or angry, the body's priority is keeping you safe, period. Does not care about reasoning, okay? So with kids, know that with kids, when they become very, their energy rises because of fear or because of anger. Trying to reason with them and explain with them at that point, it's not helpful for them, because sometimes what that will do is, there's two ways of giving messages, right? There's two ways of communicating with people. One is through your words, right? So I could say to you all, oh, I'm really glad to be here. Or I could say to you, yeah, I'm really glad to be here. That would give you two very different messages, right? So when you are talking to a child and they're really agitated and you're trying to reason with them, you run the risk of giving them the message that they should be able to reason at that place. And they physically can't. They physically can't. One, they physically can't. Two, trying to have them verbalize, especially really young kids, verbalize why they're having that reaction, tells them that they should know. That they should know exactly why they're feeling these emotions, and they don't. I would bet my right arm that most of the time they have no idea why they're reacting in the way they're reacting. Okay, so we often as adults make the mistake of thinking of children as little adults, and they're not. They're not. They don't have the reasoning capacity. They don't have the understanding, and they don't have the verbal ability to explain it. That takes a long time to gather that information. So what we're teaching, what the ideal to teach is what we call emotional regulation, right? Children learning how to feel something and process it in such a way so that they calm down and then can start to think and have a discussion about it and talking about it. One of the ways that I find is the best way. And I want to know that as I'm saying these things, know that I'm a parent and know that I make mistakes all the time. So know that a lot of these things I'm saying to you, know that I don't do them perfectly. Trust me, that I'm not perfect at all. So being a therapist and being a parent are two very different things. So I want you to keep that in mind. That when you have not only a child, but an individual, okay, an individual that comes to you that is very scared or very angry or very agitated, okay, know that I think of it sometimes as energy, know that their energy level is high, okay, because that's what those chemicals do, right? They add the adrenaline, and so you've got a lot of energy going on, okay? For whatever reason, our systems work so that if we try to unconsciously, our brains try to equalize energy. So if somebody comes to you with a high energy, you lowering yours helps them to, they will unconsciously try to meet at your energy level. So know that, like, if somebody comes at you angry and you respond with more energy, what are you angry at me for? Like, I didn't do anything. That is going to increase it. And that's going to make it harder to calm down. So if you are trying to teach an individual or a child specifically, because children learn emotional regulation, they don't learn it through words. They won't learn it through you telling them how to do it. They will learn it through watching you and feeling you. Your kids are very, very connected with you. Your family's all really connected with you, right? Like when you think of it this way. When you walk into a room and there's been a fight and you haven't heard anything, you know how you can feel the tension? You know, people talk about cutting the tension with a knife in the room, right? That is a real thing. You do, you feel that. So know that your kids watch you and how you regulate. So one of the things I often say to parents is, when you see this going on, notice how you feel. So if you're getting angry, if you're getting irritated, which is easy to do as a parent, right? Because it's not like we're really given a handbook. You know, it's not like we're taught exactly how to do this. I mean, we all kind of wing it to some level, right? It's hard. And there's so many variety of things that could happen that there's no way that you could like learn it all and then do it perfectly. It doesn't work that way. But if you notice how you're feeling, and if you're starting to feel scared, like maybe, oh my God, I don't know what to do, know that that feeling transmits. That feeling transmits. So you getting to a place where you really, really understand that you're okay and you're doing the best that you can and that you're going to get through it. So to me, when you're helping other people, if your goal is to help other people calm down, the number one is you being calm, right? Number two, you understanding that you're okay and they're okay and they're going to figure it out. That is a huge thing. Okay. If you're working with somebody and your bottom line thought is, oh my God, this person's really bad and it's going to get really bad. And oh my God, what are they going to do? That energy translates. They may not be conscious of it. Like they may not think it like, oh, she's really scared for me, but they will feel it and it will have an effect. It'll have an effect. So, you know, so I started today talking about how I'm trained in internal family systems. So how I relate to this idea and helping other people is, I know it's been my experience in this particular type of therapy, it's their model, that all of us have an aspect of ourselves that can figure it out. Okay. The difficulty when it's figured out is when you get stressed and believe that you can't. That's it. That's the only thing. All that does, and truly all it does is it puts a block up. It puts a block up, but you really can. But the only way that you can really reach that creative part, because that aspect of you, like when you're feeling calm and curious about what's going to happen and compassionate towards yourself and others, when you're in that space, that's where you can really kind of create things, right? And I know as a therapist, like people come to me all the time, like, this is my problem. How do I solve it? Right. I know, at least this is my philosophy. I know that they could give me all the details in the world and I'm not going to be able to solve it for them. And I also know one step further, even if I could solve it for them, I wouldn't really be able to because they have to solve it. Okay. So each one of us has to kind of figure out our own way through it with our history. We know our own history. We know our families. We know, and it's a complicated thing. It's not a black and white thing, right? It's not like, oh, just do this, 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 and this, and it'll work. Now, sometimes this, 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 and this works for some people. Sometimes it doesn't work for others, right? So in that place, that gives you the most chances of figuring out something for yourself. Okay. Now there's many different cultures and religions and beliefs and philosophies that point towards that part of your mind. You're that part of your consciousness. You can talk about it in terms of brain wavelengths. Okay. So So when you're in this space, your wavelengths look very different than when you're in a calm place. Your wavelengths are very different. Meditation is a huge way to get to that place of calm. Mindfulness. It is, if there was any one thing that I could make suggestions to people, it would be learning and practicing meditation on a daily basis. And it doesn't have, meditation can look very different for different people. My belief is, you know, when you hear athletes talk about being in the zone, I believe that's a form of meditation. When you get focused on one thing, whether it's something you're looking at visually, something you're listening to, auditory, something you're breathing, a walking meditation where you're walking and you're just noticing the feel of your feet on the ground as you're walking. That is calming your whole brain down. And in that process, as wild as it sounds, like it seems so weird to me, like you're calming your brain down, yet your brain is actually growing at those very times. Mm-hmm. Your brain actually makes significant connections at that time, right? So like when we're busy, like frantically trying to figure something out, that's like the worst time to try to figure stuff out, as weird as that sounds, although we all do it, right? I do it all the time. So yeah, if there's one thing I could say, learning how to meditate and actively doing that on a daily basis, so you give your system a rest, your whole system. It'll help your healing process. It'll help a lot of different things. Let your body do.
Do you have a recommended amount of time to start and how you progress?
So I've done a few different things, and I do different things at different times. I would suggest, one of the things I recently learned that I think is really beneficial is when you meditate, when you get to that place that people who meditate a lot try to get to, they call it the delta waves. Those are the wavelengths. You're getting to the delta waves. It's a very, very pleasant place to be. You are in that, you go through the delta waves as you go from sleeping, which I forget what that's called. You go through the delta to the awake state. And when you're falling asleep, you go through the delta to the deep sleep. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that much. So when you're waking up, you know that place when you're waking up and you just like kind of feel in the bed and you're just kind of like, this is really nice. You're in the delta place. So learning to start to meditate from that place is a good idea. Okay. I went to a school for meditation, and the way they did it was excellent and really helped. I'm doing a different process now that I'm counting really slowly from 100 down to 1. And that's getting me to like a delta. And that's just I'm doing a different thing. So, and I don't think it matters. Like if you get to that place from listening to a guided meditation, do it. If you get that place studying, watching birds, like I love birds, so I have bird feeders, I will sit there and watch them. That gets me to that place, you know. Do it, it's the amount of doing consciously. I think the only thing that really is harmful to you is when you think that when you're practicing meditation that you shouldn't be thinking. Know that you're going to think. Mm-hmm. Our brains are used to just kind of like a constant chatter, right? It's just your brains are used to that. So when you get distracted and start thinking, please don't beat yourself up. It's just, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Just notice that you're doing it and come back like, oh, I'm thinking again. Okay. Come on back. Yeah.
So we say for young moms, introducing meditation to their children, how,
That's an
how-
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think with young children, I think emotional regulation is the most thing. And so I know of 3 things that helps children calm down. 1, physical touch. First, you have to be in a calm place, but physical touch is helpful. Removing somebody from the situation. So if something's going on in the living room and they have a meltdown, outside is usually the best way, right? And so now we have the temperatures finally cooling down here anyway. So like going outside is an option, going outside, just removing from the situation, that helps. And then focusing on something else. Focusing on something beautiful actually is the best thing. Oh, look at this flower over here, or look, that helps the mind calm down. Now they're just getting to that calmer state, then you can have a reason, then you can start talking, but know that you're not going to gauge a lot of this because they don't have a lot of this to handle. They don't have a lot of executive functions going on. So it's just kind of knowing that you're basically dealing with somebody crazy and impulsive for several years. That's just the deal. It has nothing to do with your parenting. It has nothing to do with anything other than they're developing that part. They're developing that part of the brain, and it's okay. That's okay. And you can set, limits and rules around it. One of my favorite books that I read when I had my child is called 1, 2, 3 Magic. Really, really simple, basic information about, and it talks about regulating your own emotions, kind of being really aware of where you're at, because that has an effect on it. That was one of the things that attracted me to it. But it gives really simple, clear ways on working with children and teaching them. The other one was there's 2 books with children that I really love. That one and Hunt Gather.
Hunters and Gatherers.
No, it's called I'm gonna have to, I think I might have it here. I'll have to look. It's Hunt, Gather, and something. It was written by a woman who was an NPR reporter.
Hunt, Gather, Parent: What Ancient Culture Can Teach Us About the Lost Art of Raising Happy, Helpful Little Humans.
Yes, it is she does a lovely job, I think, of really kind of pointing to showing a child how to be in the system of a family by compassion, working with compassion. And she does a beautiful job. Yeah, that's a great book. Yeah, maybe if you can put that in the chat, kind of write that down so people can do that. And the other one was 1, 2, 3 Magic. Yeah.
And I also read a book called The Baby Biome, which is very good too.
I haven't read that.
Answer Peyton's question about youth, defiant youth. How would we work with, kids who are young people who are kind of, they're always trying to study you.
Yes. Yes.
All, when you work in these groups, they're always just trying to study you. How would we bring them, center them?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to point out that working with groups is really hard. Okay. Especially youth groups. So, most of my experience is working with adults. Okay. And children one-on-one and young adults one-on-one. When you're talking middle grades to high school, groups can be very difficult, because when something starts rolling, it can be hard, when all the kids kind of get into a mode of being, it could be really hard to it takes some skill to be able to work with that and guide that. That being said, now Jilka, you had mentioned defiance.
Yeah.
Okay. Defiance is actually one of us. I love working with defiant children. So to me, when somebody,
icebreaker.
that when somebody's being defiant, to me, their message is, I don't trust you, and you're not gonna hear me. You're not gonna listen to me. So I'm gonna push to make sure that you listen to me. Okay. So my approach always is, you have my complete attention and you have my complete respect. So if you don't want to do this, then we won't do that. If you want to talk about this, talk about this. And always kind of reflecting that back. That is a need to be heard to me. That's a cry to be heard and respected. Now, respect doesn't mean that you do everything that they want. That's not respect. That's codependency, right? So just because I want something right now, I can acknowledge, or somebody wants something right now, I can acknowledge that they want it. Like, I hear you. Yeah, you really want that and you think that's really important, but we can't do that. Like, sometimes I'll have kids, often kids will want to take something from my office to get home. It's because part of it's an attachment thing, right? But they can't, because then they wouldn't be able to play with it when they came later. Or there's a lot of different reasons, because then it would be the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I'm like, yes, I hear you. You would really like that, but no, that needs to stay here. And so they learn that, with defiance, they learn if you're listening to them and hear them and see them. And I want to point out too, this kind of goes into when anybody's feeling an extreme emotion. And this goes into the model I work with also. And I'm going to relate it to when we're overwhelmed by an emotion. Okay. So when a child, say a 2-year-old, comes about lunchtime, comes into the room and is starving, okay, sees a cookie up on the counter, they're going to most likely have a meltdown, right? I want that cookie. I'm like, in their mind, they're like, I'm starving. That cookie would be perfect. I want that cookie. And they may have a meltdown wanting that cookie if you say no. But as a parent, yeah, you could give them the cookie and they would stop, right? They would stop the meltdown. You'd be giving them what they want, but what they really need is nutrition. Like the child needs a really good meal, right? So you saying to them, I hear you. Yes, you want that. I see that. You're really, really hungry. You want that cookie. I got it. Let's give you really need some food. Let's food. And then maybe after you can have the cookie. But right now you need food, right? When you're overwhelmed with an emotion, okay, when you get a reaction of strong anxiety or strong anger or whatever, right? I look at as a part of you that really needs some attention. Okay. So sometimes distraction works, right? Like you're feeling anxious and sometimes you divert your attention to watching a show or doing something or physically, and those things work. I'm not downplaying those. But truly, if you are getting overwhelmed with something over and over again, that is a part of you that's saying, hey, I need your attention. This is important. And so think of it like if you were to walk into a room of people and you see that one person is deep in a conversation, but something's about to fall on them, maybe. Mm-hmm. You're going to call that person's name. And if they ignore you, you're going to get louder. Hey, you need, listen. And imagine if they were to turn to you and say, you need to just be quiet. You are bothering me. I'm in the middle of a conversation. Just stop, right? I think of that sometimes that we do that with our emotions sometimes. You're feeling a lot of anxiety and you're like, this just needs to stop. Like this anxiety is getting in my way. It needs to stop. Okay. But if I was trying to talk to that person, they still kept on, I might really amp up to the point where I'm physically like grabbing their shoulder or pulling them out or yelling or screaming like, hey, you got to move because you're in danger. So sometimes with emotions, if they are not if we have a part of us that's trying to let us know something, it's going to keep amping up until we listen.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes what our thought is, like, it's the same thing with that child with the cookie, right? I could just give the child what he wants. If he wanted the cookie, if I just gave him, that would quiet him down, right? So if your anxiety is saying, oh my God, I've got to recheck this and recheck and recheck, and I need to talk to all these people, and you just go ahead and do that. That's like giving that anxiety a cookie and going, okay, I'm going to do what you want. And da, 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 da. But if you sit down and go, okay, what's really going on? Like, why am I feeling so anxious? What is causing this? What's so important that I need to know? Turning your attention and your awareness to that emotion in really a non-judgmental way. I mean, that's what it boils down to, being compassionate with yourself, trusting that that emotion's there because of a valid reason. It doesn't mean that it necessarily has to drive the bus, but it's valid. Okay. Just you turning your awareness and your attention to that automatically calms it down.
Mhm.
It's the same with a child. If a child is having a temper tantrum, if you're not paying attention to it, it can escalate, right? So like if a child was to be escalating, if I was to say to them, you need to just be quiet and sit down and stop it. Now, as an adult, I could stop a child from doing something, right? I could stop a behavior. It may be mean and cruel, but I could do it, right? But it's not going to solve the problem that is causing the issue. Turning my attention and my focus on it in a calm way will give me information and will help them. Just the awareness and feeling like you're heard calms you down.
Good information. Any questions? Peyton, Kayla? Kayla just joined us. Hi, Kayla.
Hey, Jessica.
Any questions for Maureen?
Not for me, but yeah, thank you so much.
Of course, of course. Does anybody have any questions or maybe feel like this maybe not apply in some areas? Questions about that?
I do have a question. This is Luz. And number one, wow, such great information.
Oh, good.
And so much knowledge in how it would be so cool that if we could look at the children in that kind of way. As you were talking, I just 100% my daughter and my grandbaby, who is now 10, highly intelligent young lady, highly intelligent. I always say highly intelligent. And but she has this personality that can be instantly very angry and yells. But when you mention the fact that the mom or we also have, and I can't remember what you said, how you described it, really affects them. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is something that is important to know, because that's a way that maybe moms can help their kids more, instead of, it's almost like they both are on the same level when she gets mad, and it's so confusing.
Yeah. And it's hard. I want to point out, our way of behaving is really kind of given to us. Okay. So you're born into a family, you're born into a culture, you're born into a socioeconomic status, you're born into go to a particular school. All these things affect how our behavior is. Okay, it's really, you know, one of the most frustrating things for me as a therapist is knowing that we know so much information about how people react in particular situations. You know, there's a whole field, social psychology, right? And so I know that people develop behaviors for very valid reasons as survival ways to survive, right? So when we get to an age where we start being more aware of our own behavior, and tends to be when we get older, you know, in our 50s and 60s, truly, where we start going, oh God, I keep doing this over and over and over again. You start noticing your patterns. Okay. When you're young, like as a teenager and through 20s, there's always this thought like, oh, I can change when I want to. It's like, well, no, it's not that easy. But you know, these things are kind of given to us, right? So I just encourage you to be compassionate with yourself with that, knowing that, you know, you develop ways of being for reasons, right? And it's just if a way of being is not working for you and doesn't work well, then learning how to change it from there. Does that make sense? Oh, I can't hear you. I think you hit the mute. There. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. Can somebody unmute her? I don't think I can. There we go.
Okay.
Did you want to say something, Luz? I thought you were saying something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Regarding meditation, is that also something for little ones?
I think so. I think so. But as with the hunting gathering book talks about, which I really love, is when kids are learning something, always, I think this is really, really a good way to be with children. Let them do it as much as they want. And then when they're done, they're done. Let them be done. So if they sit for 30 seconds, like, okay, mom, I'm ready, I'm going, you know, then okay. It's more about inviting, but truly kids hear what we say, but they watch what we do. They watch what we do. So you doing it, you coming to that place and being calm, and they sit and you say, you know what, I'm going to meditate for a while and rest, or however you want to term it. You're welcome to be with me if you want to sit in here, but we're going to be quiet. You know, you inviting, always an invite, like you're welcome to join if you would like. That will have way more impact than you trying to get them to sit down and be quiet. Because truly kids, they have a limited capacity to do that. They have a ton of energy, and that's one of my gripes with the systems kind of we have in place with schools. I really feel like they're so detrimental to children in the sense of just not having, I mean, especially with the play. I mean, pulling play out is just crazy to me. That's how kids learn. They learn through play, period. But I won't get on that high horse, sorry. But you know, allowing them to like do what they need to do and get the energy out where they need to get the energy out, that, you know, trust that process. If they want to cook with you, letting them cook as long as they want to and do what they want. And then when they're done and they're leaving, let them be done and they're leaving. If they haven't lost anything, they've learned a little bit more and they're moving on. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Zubair.
No.
You go first. You started first.
Ladies first, please.
Thank you. Well, I thank you for all this information. I haven't even realized that walking actually could be a meditation, because I was like, oh, I can't get into meditation. But when you said walking, I was like, oh, because I love walking. So like, thank you for letting me realize that. So what I was kind of interesting, like a lot of the things you said about how kids react to things, in some way it can be like how adults react to things in a way, because it's really hard to emotionally regulate ourselves, especially when there is so much stress, especially anxiety. So I would like to know, like, if there are any tips to kind of overcoming the anxiety, because in some ways anything can come hard crashing down on all of us. So is there like anything we can do about our anxiety, like any small tips that can lead to a bigger goal?
Yeah, know that, in my opinion, honestly, we have a lot of systems in place that really encourage high anxiety,
Yeah.
from jobs to work pace to this idea
Esteem.
of, yeah, just the idea of parents being the end all for their children. Like there's no more, I don't know, depending on where you are in your culture. I know the American culture in general, people follow their jobs and they're not generally close to family members, extended family members. And when it comes to kids, having a lot of people working with them is so much helpful. Having it all fall on one or two people is a lot. And it's really, really stressful. Okay. to so jobs being so high pace, right? There's a lot of jobs are really, really high pace, high excitement, being always kind of at the edge, a medical system that is really stressful, that it's difficult, and now our political system has gotten to be like a very stressful football game or something. Like everybody's on a team and it's about winning, and it's not about really talking about the issues that are in play. The news, which is really about getting your attention and keeping your attention. And we know with psychology, if it's something that's stressful, it's going to keep your attention longer. Okay. To the phones, phones being, their main goal is to get your dopamine going, period. The apps don't fly if they don't get your dopamine in your head going. Okay. So we have a lot of systems in place that cause anxiety and cause up energy and lowers your ability to figure things out. I want to point that out. When your anxiety is going up, you're not going to be able to figure out how to deal with it. Not easily anyway. So to me, if your goal is to keep yourself at a calm state, meditation is an excellent way. But if there's something going on, okay, if like I said before, like if that anxiety is because of a reason, it's going to keep coming up until that reason's taken care of.
Yeah.
So, I'm pretty partial to therapy. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that because that's my career, but that's how I grew up.
Well, no, it's that's the point. It's like telling people the hard answers. They kind of know maybe what the answer is going to be, but they need to hear it from someone else, right?
And that brings up something else I wanted to talk about too, because somebody had brought up the stigma along with mental health, and I want to point something out, and it's not something I hear very often, but it kind of hit me when I don't remember who brought it up, but they were talking about it. I love that we're talking about mental health. Honestly, I think that's awesome, and I know that there are a lot of cultures that think of therapy and mental health help as, you have to be really crazy to do it, or you have to be really, disabled in some way. And I see a lot of pathologizing going on. So one of the things that has become very popular in America is the DSM, right? I don't know if you all have heard of that, but it is a book put out by the American Psychological Association that is a list of conditions and the definitions and how people meet these conditions. Okay. And I want to point out that it's never been proven valid or reliable. Okay. I just want to point that out. Okay. It is a tool that as therapists we have developed to try to communicate better with other medical professionals. Okay. With other therapists, with other, and learning about different things, right? And how to approach them and how to work with this. So it's honestly it's well-intentioned. Okay. But I see a lot of young kids, and they come up with these conditions that I've never even heard of before. I mean, they'll come in and they'll give me this list of diagnoses that they think they have. And I'm just like, holy moly. And I know there's some relief in being able to put a label on your experience, right? There is some relief in that.
A label on a child.
But on yourself, like, oh, I'm dealing with this experience. Oh, I have anxiety. Okay. So, and there's a benefit in that it is not you, it's something you have. It's something that you're dealing with. But oftentimes I see this pathologizing where that's who they are. Oh, they are bipolar. Oh, they're borderline. Oh, they're this, they're that. And I think it's disrespectful. And I think it is oversimplifying a real struggle that people have. And so I get a little bit nervous when people talk about mental health, because it feels sometimes to me like the message is, oh, you're broken, you need to go get fixed. And I don't like that at all, because I don't believe people get broken. I just don't. I don't think that's a real thing. I think that you develop ways of surviving that sometimes don't work so well anymore. That's what I believe. And so if you need to describe it as anxiety, I deal with anxiety, great. That's fine. But I see a lot of labeling going on. And I think it's our nature to try to simplify things, right? And as therapists, and that's why I don't like the DSM getting out, because like as therapists, I know that when I say somebody is dealing, and I won't even get into the personality disorders because that's a whole nother thing. But if somebody's dealing with bipolar disorder, I know there's a whole range in there. And I also know that people can present as bipolar and have other things, right? So the labeling stuff I have a hard time with, because the kids are starting to do it a lot, and I know they just they see it on, there's so much information on the computer and stuff. I get worried about that. But yeah, with the anxiety, it always comes down to, I think, knowing that if you're feeling it, if you're experiencing it, it's there for valid reasons. Have respect for yourself and it. And all you're doing is turning your attention towards it. Like, okay, what is this about? And having somebody help you do that, that's awesome. That can be a therapist, that can be a really good friend, that can be a minister, that can be a lot of things. Know that you are the one that's going to figure it out, not somebody else. Giving somebody else that power really is fundamentally incorrect, I think. Fundamentally, we have that aspect of us that can figure it out.
As I think we are on time, a little bit over our time, right? And I think this is wonderful information. Again, Maureen, we would love to have you speak with our community again. I think this is very important for us as we move forward.
I'd be honored.
Thank you very much, all of you, for spending your evening with us. And we'll see you at the next cafe. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Amazing.
Maureen. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes,
you very
well,
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
you.
so much.
yes, yes. Very nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.